Good morning and happy Sunday. Welcome to the Early Wedge. We've got a round 4 live betting stream for, of course, the Rocket Classic. I'm joined by McClure, Patrick McDonald, and Jason Sobel. Gentlemen, we've got a very interesting leaderboard at 10:30 on a Sunday. But Jason Sobel, I got to start with you because we did our best bets show on Tuesday, and we all had some picks that are, some are kind of lingering, but you have 2 picks that are in tied for second. You have Max Grazerman and Jake Knapp. I just got to ask you before we kind of touch on where we're at on this leaderboard from an odds standpoint today. How you feeling about those 2 picks?
Okay. Like cautiously optimistic. I feel like Potgieter's showed me something this week. I thought he was sort of just this big hitter who can make some putts, and everything in between was a little shaky, but I think he's played some really good golf so far. So wouldn't surprise me to see the 20-year-old keep it together today. And then Chris Kirk kind of has me a little worried as well. Yeah. The ball striking has been really good, and he's a 6-time winner. It's funny. I was talking on the radio the other day that Chris Kirk and Andrew Putnam, both guys who are right up there right now, you would look at their careers, look at them play, and say there aren't a whole lot of differences. They're basically like the same type of player. Putnam has 1 win. It was 7 years ago. Kirk has 6 wins. That's a massive difference, and yet the talent levels aren't really that far off.
The Chris Kirk observation's really interesting because he's been so good. He's been good here. He lost 2 strokes putting yesterday, which we know that's probably not going to happen again today. So that 17 under looks a little bit better than it actually is. Again, that's tied for second. Patrick, your thoughts on this leaderboard? I mean, I thought about taking Aldrich live yesterday when he still had like 7 or 8 holes to play at like plus 250, plus 275. I'm kind of thankful I laid off because he didn't really – I don't know what to say. He didn't really put his foot down like towards the back end there. With that said, we've seen him throw it away before, just once. How you feeling if you're an Aldrich backer, which I know a lot of people are, or at least some people are? How you feeling about that 19 under?
You're probably wishing he got at least one more towards the end there. Didn't get any of those par 5s on the back 9, but water kind of found its level. He had some luck there in the beginning of his round also, but. I mean, the tournament's solely in his hand. If he goes out and shoots 2 under, it's completely wide open. And if he goes out there and shoots, I don't know, like 4, I think that could do it. 23 under is probably going to be pretty tough to catch. 24 under, something like that. Yeah. That would mean someone at the 15 unders, the 14 unders. See, I know we have some names there. Would have to. I can't keep up with what the course record is at this point, but I think it's 11 under. And so they would have to tie it. To potentially get into a playoff. But like Jason said, he put a new set of irons in his bag while he was away for a month, put a new ball in the bag too, was lamenting that he was missing long a lot on approach shots. And the iron plays looked pretty good so far this week.
Prasant in the chat, along with so many others, Doug Craig, Hef Sterling, Jeff Stenberg, Joseph Boza. Mike, they're all kind of wondering how far back is too far back. Somebody's asking about Davis Thompson, who is sitting at that 14 under mark, which of course is 5 shots back at this point. I will say that if you followed my live thread that I did on Friday night, I put a live play on Thriston Lawrence, who is obviously, we see him at 16 under. I'm kind of hoping he closes the gap. He's 3 shots back. If you we're going to consider the live betting board in a second. Josh is going to help us with that. But when you're considering there's such a bunch at the top, would you kind of phase out the 14 unders because there's still so much to choose from 15 under and lower?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Ben Griffin is the 14 under that I could still get behind. But I think that's as far as you're realistically talking, just considering the situation that we see here. There are a lot of names at 15, Harry Hall, Colin Morikawa, both could get there. Potgieter, I think, is, as Patrick said, I think he said perfectly, one more, you would have felt really pretty good about it. Now, he needs to at least shoot probably 3 under a minimum to hold on and win this. Pretty good, though. I like the I got some chasers here. And remember the DFS show? See, I said I didn't want to give out the full lineup there, but we talked about the 2 7K guys. Potgieter was the 7K guy. Nice. And Champ, the other one, which allowed you to play Harry Hall and Ben Griffin and Cam Young. If you played that little deal, you're going to at least 5x, probably 10x your money.
Eric Baz says, or Baz, I'm not sure. Eric Baz probably says, holding a Suber top 20 ticket. The one thing I do want to tout for myself, I went on HQ on Monday and I think it was with Jenny Dell, and they asked for my best bet. I gave out Tristan Lawrence top 20 at plus 320, which, by the way, he could fall out of that like pretty easily, as it turns out, because it's so bunched at the top. And that's part of the reason I put the live play on him out on Twitter. I did a live thread for like 30 minutes answering questions, and Tristan at 50-1 in that moment was my favorite. I guess, Jason, I want to ask the same question to you before we start picking some players live outright. How far down is too far down?
Yeah, I would say 14s have a chance. There's so much volatility on this golf course. Patrick said it earlier. We've seen 11 under on this golf course already this week. It wouldn't shock me to see someone come from way behind. I don't know if they can win it from 13, 14, but I can see somebody getting in the mix. One of those deals where somebody finishes 2 hours before the leaders and at least doesn't leave the golf course yet and sits around for a while. Maybe they don't win because there are so many birdies out there, but at least has to, kind of hang out and have some lunch and not leave the premises yet.
All right. By the way, Patrick is having some tech difficulties. He's going to try to get back with us shortly. And by the way, if you're new to this show, we do this live back and forth. We're going to talk about outrights in a second that we're actually thinking about, maybe some matchups. If you have any matchups or outrights or anything you want us to consider, put it in the chat. And oh, by the way, we're going to spend about 5 or 10 minutes just on a quick preview, just a quick hitter on the John Deere in about 10, 15 minutes. And then we're going to circle back to this tournament. All right, Josh, let's take a look at the live board here, because this is one of those situations that we've had recently. Like on this show, we've had kind of good luck with having a live board that is fruitful in the sense that there's so many that can win. So I look at these odds, gentlemen, and I just wonder where you're at here. If let's just assume that you're not Jason Sobel and you don't already have Grazerman and Jake Knapp pre-flop, and you're kind of like, hey, I'd love to get some money down on some of these guys. And Mike, I didn't even ask you if you have somebody live here. Again, I have Tristan as a live bet. I have Griffin, which I don't think he's going to come back. But Mike, I'm going to start with you. When you look at this board, Aldrich plus 300, Grazerman plus 600. I think it's plus 650 in some places here as well. Jake Knapp plus 750. Kirk plus 800, and then there's just so many others to choose from. People in the chat asking about Colin Morikawa at plus 1,400. Thorpe is in there at plus 1,600, and then Harry Hall. What do you like here?
Yeah, so I do have Harry Hall and I do have Ben Griffin. I think both of those guys are going to have fine days, fine finishes. I don't think either one of them comes back to win this. If I had to play something here, having what I have, so having those two, but no one else, I actually like Colin Morikawa a little bit at 14, just on skill set alone. Knapp and Grazerman, though, I really like that. I like Jake Knapp right now. I think Jake Knapp can absolutely go win this tournament. I would like to get that number closer to 8 to 9 to 1, but I do like Knapp and Morikawa here the most.
The one thing I want to say about Knapp, and this is, again, something we talked about, I think on the DFS show, Mike, but certainly on the Wednesday live chat, which I got to say, if you guys aren't watching the Wednesday live chat, it is really, really good. It's partly good because of all the questions that are in the chat and the back and forth, but that chat is like getting me on some plays and maybe getting me off some plays. But one thing we know, Jason, because Mike mentioned Jake Knapp at plus 750 here, this is a course. This is like such an easy sort of test, especially for those guys that like can kind of hit it long and get hot with the putter, that you don't need form coming in here. We've seen it with Cam Davis and so many other players, specifically at the Rocket Classic. But I do want to point that out for like next year and the year after. Like, you do not need to have incoming form. If you're a good course fit historically, I think you're okay here. And Jake Knapp, Jason, we've seen him close before on Sundays. What are your thoughts here? If you didn't have a ticket out already, what are the names that come to mind here?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, I think the course fit angle certainly makes sense. I think it's changed a little bit this week. They've gotten ball in hand for the first 3 days. I haven't seen if they're doing that yet for today. I don't know if you guys.
I don't think so. No,
they're not. Okay, that's good. That said, my theory on this is that this is a good course for the long hitters. We talked about that going into the week. Then they play ball in hand because it's wet out there, and it gives almost an advantage to the guys who hit it in the fairway because all of a sudden, now we get to move it a little bit. We get to clean it off. We get a nice lie, whereas these guys are sitting there with mud balls in the rough who are mashing at 320, but not hitting it straight enough. So it's almost leveled the playing field a little bit, which is probably the explanation for why guys like Mark Hubbard and Andrew Putnam can be on this leaderboard in a course that traditionally favors the longer hitters. That said, as a guy who has Gracerman and Knapp tickets, as I mentioned, I'm a little scared of Chris Kirk. I'm not going to hedge. I'm not going to jump on him right now, but a guy who's won 6 times, he's got some ice in his veins a little bit. And this is a guy that knows how to get the job done when he's in contention. And then you mentioned the name Sia. And if I'm looking for a guy who's maybe not way back, but a little further back that can get it done, Tristan Lawrence has won golf tournaments around the world. I spoke with him at length after every round at the U.S. Open at Oakmont a few weeks ago doing post-round interviews. And this is a dude who he's got that DP World Tour mentality, which is, and I'm watching the end of the Italian Open right now that Sadier looks like he's going to win. But Lawrence is a guy who just basically like, get up to the ball, get your number, hit a shot, go up to it, hit a putt. I mean, Colin Morikawa talked earlier this week about it taking months for him to go, you know what, let's just go play golf. Let's just, go out and hit the ball and, try to hit it close to the hole and make some putts. It's like, that's what a guy like Lawrence just does that on a regular basis. That's his DNA. And so it would not surprise me to see Lawrence make a run. I like him next week at the John Deere when we get into picks for next week. Later in the show, I'm going to mention his name as well. But he's a guy he's got a little something. I like this guy.
Yeah, I am, as much as I like to tout how our cards, Jason, are kind of limited. We only pick you typically like 3 to 5 outrights, whereas some others will pick 5, 7, 8, or whatever the case may be. I'm very much regretting not having at least Tristan Lawrence on my card. Max Graserman is another one I'm actually regretting as well. But that's what happens when you take Griffin and Cameron Young. You do have to shorten it up a little bit, and those were 2 of my 4 outrights. But I love Tristan Lawrence. I mean, I thought he found something recently. We saw it in the metrics on approach and with the putter, and we know he's good enough off the tee as well. So he really jumped out to me from a DFS standpoint. I just didn't take him outright here. Okay, let me ask you this one other question before we look at matchups, Jason. When you've got a guy like Aldrich, like you've talked to so many of these guys, and I don't know if you've actually specifically interviewed or spoken with Aldrich, but knowing that earlier in the year, he gave up a tournament basically. He got a little unlucky too. With that in mind, when you've got a guy like Jake Knapp, who was one, Chris Kirk, who was won a ton, Colin Morikawa in the chase back. When you got a guy like Aldrich, who was kind of giving it up before and might find himself only with like a 1-shot lead 4 or 5 holes into it, again, he could separate as well. How do you think that goes into his psyche specifically?
Look, I realize I just said 2 minutes ago that Chris Kirk has 6 wins. It might give him an advantage of, just knowing how to get it done down the stretch. But as Mike can attest to, past performance is not an indicator of future success. If you're only betting on things that have happened before, you are going to lose a lot of money betting on sports. And so at some point you have to take a leap of faith and you say, look, this guy's playing well for 3 days. I like how he's playing. He can go win this golf tournament. Doesn't mean that Pot Geeter is going to do it. That said, I say this all the time. I go on Taylor Zarzur's show on PGA Tour Radio every Monday morning, and it's become a bit every Monday where he asks me about whether it's the second or third place finish or somebody that maybe had the 54-hole lead, but a guy that was close, how should we frame it after he didn't get it done? And 99.5% of the time, maybe everything other than Rory losing at Pinehurst last year when he missed a couple of 3-footers, there's not a whole lot of positives you can take from that. For the most part, every single time I will tell him that the experience of being in the heat of the battle is going to benefit a player long-term and will outweigh the negatives. I mean, I don't care if you've got a 5-shot lead with 18 holes to play and you shoot 76 and you lose by 2. That's going to be better for you long-term than finishing in 23rd place and never really sniffing it. I'm a firm believer in that. And so if that's the case, Pot Geeter, I know his heart was probably a little broken at Mexico 4 months ago when he lost to Brian Campbell. That said, that experience is going to serve him well today. And if he doesn't win today, today's experience is going to serve him well moving forward. And he's got a long, long career ahead of him.
Prasant brings up a really good point. By the way, Joseph Bose is saying Aldrich didn't really give it up. Brian Campbell got really lucky. I think both are true, but Prasant's saying Aldrich is doing it differently this week with the off the tee and approach play versus around the green to Mexico. That is true. He's looking really good. Aldrich, atypically, or I should say typically, he's not good on approach, but looking pretty good this week. Mike, before we look at some matchups that are coming up, are there any because I know you got to get out of here in about 5 to 7 minutes. Are there any like round scores? Because I know you typically like that, or finishing positions that you've taken a look at.
Yeah. So round scores, the conditions aren't quite as good as I was maybe anticipating early, just watching some of the stuff action on the course. So I'm kind of hesitant on going under on quite a few. If you're someone that's worried about Potgieter, I wouldn't mind playing his over. There are scenarios where he shoots closer to an even par round and still gets something done. But guys that I would be more interested in leaning under on, Harry Hall would be one. I just think he's going to be pretty aggressive and chasing here. I think he has the opportunity. The thing that I like about, let me confirm the number here. Yeah, what if I told you Harry Hall was 15 under T10 and actually has lost strokes off the tee this week? He has a negative number off the tee. I think that while you could argue that he's not going to magically turn it around in round 4, if he does, he's played great golf to still be, negative in that category. You could say the same thing about, Matt Fitzpatrick for sure with the putter. He's lost with the putter a little bit. There was one other that stood out. Colin Morikawa as well. Morikawa is losing strokes putting for the week so far. I like Morikawa, so I'd be going under on Morikawa and Harry Hall.
Yeah, and I think Morikawa's bounced back because obviously round 1 was just horrific for Colin Morikawa. So the fact that he's only a minimal loser right now means he's kind of finding it on the greens. I got to say, Matt Fitzpatrick has been impressing me just in general because he was just awful at the beginning of the year, and he's starting to play really well. Gene Kroll asks Mike, Jason, real quick, I'll get to you in a second. What do you think of Jake Knapp's 68 or under at plus 110, Mike?
Don't hate it. I lean under. I think it's pretty appropriate where it's at, but if you're in, I think he's got upside, to shoot 7 under here. So I'm certainly not playing the over on it. If you said I had to play it, it would be the under.
Jason, go ahead.
There's a trend that's been developing over the course of the year. I mean, we go back to, what was it, February, March, really March beginning. Victor Hovland was terrible. I mean, you're looking at him, you're like, I'm not touching him at all for the rest of the year because he's awful. And then like a few weeks later, he wins a golf tournament. We've seen that a few other times where guys we're just not really playing their best. No, this guy was terrible, and then really finds it. Matt Fitzpatrick could very much fit this trend where I don't think he's going to go out and win this golf tournament today, but it's funny. I think we have to train our minds to understand that, we want to chase form and course history, and we want to chase these guys that, have been playing well. These guys are professional golfers, are professional athletes, and they all know how to play. Sometimes just something clicks for these guys. Yeah. And I think obviously the task for us is to figure out when it's going to click and figure out where that number is before they start playing their better golf, because Matt Fitzpatrick was a nice big number. Patrick was on him on the early wedge earlier this week. And I think that even when you see a guy playing terrible, it doesn't mean that it's going to last for 6 months, maybe not even 3 months. These guys can turn it around pretty quickly. He's another example of it.
Especially the guys with pedigree. Let's take a look at the matchups real quick before Mike gets out of here. And by the way, when Mike gets out of here, we're going to do a John Deere just sort of quick hitter preview. Maybe Patrick will rejoin us at that point, but it'll certainly be me and Jason. Then we're going to circle back to see what's going on the course and take a look at the live outrights and some of your questions again. Do we have, Josh, we may not. If we don't, I can go verbal here. Do we have the matchups over at BetMGM or somewhere else that we can take a look at least the ones that are coming up? If not, I can just kind of go through some of the ones that are coming up. I don't know, Mike, did you take a look at any matchups yet? Because I can go over a few.
Yeah, it's funny because I told you I liked Colin Morikawa. Colin Morikawa is currently minus 140 against Ben Griffin. I think that is a little extreme. I like Colin Morikawa a lot, and I think he's going to have a great round. I don't think he should be minus 140 in a single round against Ben Griffin when they're both, chasing in contention, playing aggressive. So I would play Ben Griffin plus 105 over Morikawa there if you had the ability to do it, or if you wanted to play a matchup. Other matchups I see, I don't mind any matchup with Harry Hall. I've seen him priced against a few others. I like Harry Hall a little bit today.
A couple here. Kirk over Putnam. I'm going to look at the number real quick, but Kevin Roy over Chandler Phillips is going off in about, actually, there's still some time for that one, but Kevin Roy's minus 135 over Chandler Phillips. Jason, it's expensive. Kevin Roy's certainly the better course fit, but you're not taking the minus 135, are you?
No, look, they've both sort of had their peak day. Their Roy shot that 62 in the first round. Phillips went low yesterday. I don't really like any. I'd play the overs for both of them. They're probably juiced up a little bit, but I can see fading Potgieter in the matchup. Do we have that up there somewhere with a Potgieter, Gracerman, and Potgieter Kirk?
The problem is Gracerman is a minus 195 favorite.
Whoa.
That's why I almost want to go the other way.
That's not what I expected. Wow. I'm sitting there thinking, I kind of like Gracerman at minus 120. I think that's pretty good. That's a big number.
Well, let me ask you this, because you're on Jake Knapp, and I know the range of outcomes for Jake Knapp are pretty wide. He's minus 120 in the penultimate group over Mark Hubbard. Your thoughts there? Mark Hubbard being a minus 110. Oh, excuse me, minus 115 versus minus 105.
Yeah, I do like Knapp in that matchup. Just a better ball striker. Hubbard tends to get a little bit nervy. I would love to see him win. It would be awesome. Become good friends with his brother, who does a great podcast for The Ringer, covering golf, and it would be pretty cool for their family. And I just don't know that Hubbard's quite got enough offensive firepower to get this thing done. I think Knapp certainly does. So I would stick with Knapp in that matchup.
Josh, can you scroll up real quick? And Mike, I'll get you out of here in a minute. But Jason, I want to ask you one more question, and then Mike, one more question. Matt Fitzpatrick's minus 110 against Davis Thompson. Speaking of range of outcomes, I do feel like the range of outcomes for Davis Thompson is pretty wide. I don't mind. It's minus 110 each way. I don't mind fading him for Matt Fitzpatrick. What do you think here?
I'll take it quickly. I like the Fitzpatrick side a little bit. Fitzpatrick leads this event tee to green. He just hasn't been able to putt. But if we're talking just straight up tee to green, Fitzpatrick is top of the field here. I like this way I would lean.
Yeah, that one goes off at 1250, so plenty of time to get that one in. Listen, Davis Thompson can go low. We know that, but I think I like that. All right, Mike, before we get you out of here, any closing words? Was there a matchup you took a look at? Was there an outright you're like, if I was going to take one, it would be this one? Final thoughts here.
Yeah, I'm more looking at finishing positions. Top 10, including ties. Ben Griffin's available still at plus 110 to plus 105. I like that quite a bit. And let's see, one other, if you want a long shot, we like Goddard up a little bit pre-tournament. Some of that was more DFS related, but I don't mind his live top 10. That is currently going off at plus 300, top 10, including ties. I think he's within striking range of that.
All right. Who's going to win the tournament, Mike?
Potgieter's going to get it done. He's going to hold on. He's going to hold on. Jake Knapp's going to finish second.
I could see it. All right. Mike, thank you so much. I know you've got some HQ responsibilities. We'll see you on the DFS show tomorrow at 7 o'clock. It'll be me, you, and Rick talking TPC Deere Run. That's, of course, the John Deere Classic, which me and Jason, and maybe Patrick, are going to cover just really quickly right after this message from our partner.
Good luck, Mike.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
All right, Jason Sobel and I are back. It is the early wedge, and we're talking quick hitter preview of the John Deere Classic. Jason Sobel, another, I guess, easy test where we're in that part of the year as we lead up, of course, to the Scottish Open and then, of course, the Open Championship. Talk to me about what you're looking for. We got about a 7,300 par 71, pretty wide fairways, pretty low scores, actually really low scores. If you look at last year and the years prior, interesting that it did look like it was a ball strikers course for the most part. And last year we saw a lot of the heavy hitters with Davis Thompson winning, but Thor Bjornsson second. We had, Clanton was up there. Some of the longer hitters like Hayden Springer was up there. But we got some ball strikers too. We see the scorecard here on the screen. What are you looking for at TPC Deere Run?
Yeah, I feel like last year was a little bit of an anomaly with those guys that you mentioned, mostly with the winner and two of the three runner-up finishes being long hitters. It's not what we are used to getting here. We've seen winners going back before that. Seb Straka, not a big hitter, even though he's a big dude. Everyone thinks he's a big hitter, not a long hitter. JT Poston, not that long. Lucas Glover, certainly not very long. Going back a few years before that, Michael Kim. Okay, Bryson, another outlier. Ryan Moore was never long. Jordan was not long back when he was in his early days 10 years ago. Brian Harmon, Zach Johnson, and Steve Stricker owned this place. So that's a lot of really shorter hitters, guys that are accurate, precise, ball strikers, and can roll in a whole lot of putts. So essentially that's what I'm looking for. And if I get beat with a Davis Thompson, Michael Thorbjornsen type, Luke Clanton, who mashes the ball around there, so be it. But I'm going to look for guys that are the precision guys who can just roll in a boatload of putts.
And from a precision standpoint, we know that, and correct me if I'm wrong here, we've got wide fairways here, which I think does like initially lend itself to guys that are long, but the rough pretty penal out here as well, right? You want to be in the fairway.
It's the growing season in the Midwest. It's going to be hot. It's going to be probably wet. We're going to have some rain out there at some point if it hasn't gotten there already. And so, yeah, you've got to be in the fairway. I don't think it'll be dissimilar to this week where, look, long and straight is better than short and straight, and certainly better than short and crooked, but short and straight might be a little bit better than long and crooked. So it all depends. We're trying to figure this stuff out on a regular basis. And a lot of it comes down to luck too. Look, sometimes you can be long and crooked and be crooked in the right spots and still turns out okay. You can be long and crooked, hit it behind a tree every single time and you're screwed. So it just depends kind of how these guys fare.
So let's talk about some names. Again, we'll cover this tournament a lot more on the DFS show, the Best Bets show, and of course the live chat, which will hit you Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday on this channel. But I mean, what was fun last week, Jason, was when we kind of had the back and forth, like we're drafting players. So we talked about it pre-show. Chris Kish saying, "Happy Sunday, boys." Appreciate that. Hit the like button, by the way, if you could, Chris and everybody else. Thank you for being in here every Sunday. Jeff Stenberg, Brad Morris, Prasant, Joseph Boza, a lot of people in here, and we certainly appreciate you. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. All right, let me start with the guy that just keeps playing golf. We talked about this pre-tournament, Ben Griffin. I mean, listen, it's I don't know if I regret taking Ben Griffin at the Rocket Classic. I mean, he still has a chance. It's just not like an extremely good chance, because taking Ben Griffin at 22-1 ended up keeping me off of guys like Max Grazerman, who might have a better shot of winning that tournament. With that said, I can't help but look at Ben Griffin's stat profile just over the last, 3 months and be like, oh my gosh, this guy is hitting it better short game, long game, any game, hitting it better than almost anybody on the PGA Tour.
If Ben Griffin hadn't won, if Ben Griffin was like, I'm still trying to get into some bigger events, get my status for the playoffs, get in some big events next year, I would say this would be the perfect place for him at the John Deere Classic. Here's the problem, is that he's already won. He's already won twice. He's already finished runner-up in a signature event and top 15 in a major championship. And that price, you want to take a guess at what his price might be at the John Deere that's coming? He might be the favorite. Without looking too deep into the field, like it might be Ben Griffin at 12 or 14-1 this coming week. Am I missing somebody out there that's like a bigger name? Jason Day is playing for some reason.
You're right. There's not a lot of big names.
Yeah.
Just looking at the field last night, I wasn't super impressed with the name. You're right. Actually, did you say 14-1? Because that sounds right to me.
Yeah, that's about what I think. And if there's no one ahead of it, 14-1 seems kind of long for the favorite in any field. So it might just be pushed to 12 just because there's no one else shorter than him. That said, I think he makes for, like, it's not to say that I don't like him next week. Makes for a great one and done selection. If you're sitting on Ben Griffin to this point and you've got him available next week, absolutely play him. And I'll play him in DFS because there should be plenty of guys at cheaper prices to go after. But I just don't know that I want to bet him at 12, 14-1 as a favorite.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Okay, so I gave out a name. I'm sure you looks like you've looked at some of the field list. What's a name that pops off to you, whether it's DFS or betting or what have you?
I will preface this by saying that I've done less research for this coming event than I usually do on a Sunday morning. I'll get there later today. But since this is a draft, Sia, I feel like this is game theory.
I love it.
So I'm going to try to steal your pick. And I know a guy that you really like is Jacob Bridgman. So I'm going to say Jacob Bridgman before you get to him.
I wasn't going to say him. I like it. So Jacob Bridgman the one problem with him, and I got to look at how he's done the last month or so, but it off the tee, he can be a little erratic, but I guess if he reins that in, the iron play is usually pretty good, and the putter can get really hot for him. So I don't, and by the way, from a talent standpoint, I think he is one of those up and comers that actually has sustainable talent long term. So we'll have to wait and see. But I love the Jacob Bridgman call. All right, I'm going to go with I'm looking at my Bud Cauley's in this tournament. You want a ball striker that can fill it up, that has been hot several times this year? Bud Cauley, if I'm looking at the outright board tonight, which will probably come out in some places tonight, I really don't know what his number is because I kind of have to look at the field list one more time and see what heavy hitters are in here. Maybe, Josh, you can help me out with that. Jason Day is certainly one of them, but there's a few others. But Bud Cauley, if he's like, I don't know, 40 to 1, 30, maybe he'll be like 35 to 1 or so, something like that. I'm happy to take that.
I like that a lot. I hadn't had him on my preliminary list, but again, I spent 5 minutes on it. Like this is very early days on the John Deere research. I'm going to go back to a guy that I had at the Travelers last week. Didn't play his best golf, but I said that if and when he's going to win, it's going to be on that kind of golf course. And I actually think TPC Deer Run and TPC River Highlands have some similarities. I'm hoping for a number that might start with a 3 on Denny McCarthy. I'm not optimistic.
Well, it's funny.
I have a feeling it's going to be more like a 25 to 1.
Here's the funny thing. Denny was probably going to be, even though I'm not a Denny guy, he's on my list, and because he's more of a big ticket name than what we have in this field. Josh was just in our private chat saying, somebody please say Denny. And you said it like 5 seconds later.
I did not even see Josh's play yet. Yes.
Denny's play here has been really good. And this is probably a little bit of what Josh is getting to. So let's see. Last year he was in the top 10, I think, or right lingering in that top 10. The year prior, T6. The year prior to that, T6. Clearly likes this place, can clearly fill it up with the putter. Denny McCarthy is going to be a popular play. And he will be, honestly, I think he'll be south of 30 to 1 on this board is my guess. Go ahead, Josh.
He was T7 last year, so we're T6, T6, T7 each of the last 3 years.
Yeah. Is that your pick? Is that your early pick, Josh?
I think that's my first click. Yeah, it's the form's a little different from. I mean, he played well at the Travelers. I think it was either last year or the year before that Denny was whatever year he lost in the Memorial playoff to Victor
2 years ago.
He was kind of lighting it up, and it was like this is going to happen at some point for Denny, and it was kind of this tournament that. He was kind of he probably wasn't the betting favorite, but kind of felt like a lot of people's first click. But yeah, I'm all over Denny on a place where let's get the ball in play, and then let's see who can make the most putts.
He might have, go ahead, Jason.
I'm looking up right now what Denny was last year. He was 20 to 1 here a year ago. Sanjay was the favorite at 14. He's playing again this year.
Yeah,
I believe Sepp Straka's in the field this week, isn't he? He was 16 last year. Rye, Denny, and eventual winner Davis Thompson were all 20 to 1. Jordan Spieth was 25 to 1.
So Denny's going to be a really short number. He's probably going to be 20, 22 to 1, something like that. Interesting. All right, let's do a few more names. Josh, stick with us because maybe you can throw in a name too. I led with Bud Cauley. Denny's a good one. I mean, Ryo Hisatsune. I think is a solid play, particularly for this course. I'm going to go with Ryo.
I almost did that in the same vein as taking Jacob Bridgman. I was almost going to take one of your other favorites in Ryo there, but I'll let you have that one. A little dependent on what happens today. I'm going to twofer. We're going snake draft.
Yeah.
I'm picking two guys with this pick. They're both in contention right now, and this is kind of contingent on what happens this afternoon. But Mark Hubbard and/or Tristan Lawrence are both guys who are playing well right now. Both momentum type players. Like each guy, like you look at his historical stats, and like when he plays well, he usually continues playing well for a little while. So I like both of them.
Tristan Lawrence, like I said earlier, I think he's found something, and it's continued here at the Rocket Classic. I'm very curious to see what his number is, and I think that is somewhat contingent upon how he finishes on Sunday. Or did you have two names? You gave out Tristan and Mark Hubbard. Okay. Josh, give us one more name.
Ooh. I don't know.
Or two.
At some point, I mean, Sung JM, perhaps. At some point, I mean, that's just a guy that could walk out there and shoot 61 on Thursday, and just kind of have one of his birdie days and get into the mix. But I've also just kind of been sitting on my hands waiting for him to play good golf at some point. So maybe not, but you get to his name pretty quick in terms of the biggest names in this field.
Okay. By the way, Taylor DeHart in the chat, he says, see, your guy Pat Mayo had Andrew Novak on his show a few weeks ago. Andrew says he loves the John Deere Classic. I mean, Novak's a winner. Like, I don't mind that call. Taylor, thanks for the reminder there. I don't mind that. I'll give out one more name, and then maybe Jason, you can close this out with a name. And by the way, Josh, I don't know if you have any thoughts on this course in terms of like kind of the setup, but the one more name I'm going to give out, I was tempted to say Eric Cole or Lee Hodges, but I'm going to go with Ryan Gerard. Plenty of upside with Ryan Gerard. Jason,
He's on
go
my
ahead.
list. He's on my list here. I got 20 names, 18 names here. How about Christian Bezadenhut?
Oh, interesting.
Good course for him. Accurate hitter, great short game. Been waiting for this. Like, he's a guy that kind of like Andrew Putnam a year or two ago, like he was getting into all the signature events. And you're kind of like, how does this guy kind of maintain the elevated status that he has? It's like, he's got to kind of do something here to maintain that. He's played, pretty good. Nothing great. He's a guy that's, again, kind of like Tristan Lawrence. He's won around the world. He's a guy that knows how to get it done when he's in that heat of the battle. I wouldn't be surprised if he wins at some point on the PGA Tour. So should be a good place for him.
Josh, any final names to consider or anything about TPC Deere Run that you think is worth noting?
No, not. I don't have a ton at this point. I don't think it's the week to talk yourself into a guy who is not a great putter. You're just gonna have to make a ton of putts, regardless of how good of a ball striker you are. So if it's not one of the weeks that I'm gonna kind of bank on a guy who's striping it but can't seem to find the bottom of the cup with the putter.
Yeah, that makes sense. Enter Denny McCarthy. Maybe this is the time, Josh. Denny is your pick, correct?
Right now, absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Well,
short. Give me a short number.
We're
not gonna like it.
That's a different conversation. But I like the name on Sunday at 11:08 in the morning.
Yeah.
Do we think it's south of, when I say south, shorter than 20-1 on Denny in this field?
It feels like we're gonna be bouncing somewhere between like 18 and 22-1.
Yeah,
I agree with that. I think especially, again, am I missing anybody here? I'm going through the field very quickly, and am I missing like a bigger name that's going to be a favorite over Ben Griffin?
I don't think so.
Any of the names that could are just not playing. He's just playing too good to not be the guy.
Well, and what that tells me is, see, you're probably right. It's probably 14 is my guess for Ben Griffin. But then it's everyone. So like, okay, we're getting a pretty good number on a guy who's a favorite, but then everyone else kind of sandwiched in there. And between 14-1 and 25-1, we might have 10 names, 12 names.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
And just wanted to throw in there that unless the PGA Tour's website is not updated, Andrew Novak is not in the field.
Interesting.
So
I wasn't sure he was.
Interesting. Okay. So don't take him unless he's in the field. That's our expert advice there on the early. I'll tell you right now, I'm probably not going to bet Denny, even though I totally agree. I love the pick. I might have to fade him in DFS because I think everybody's going to play him, especially in this field, given his history as well. My first click is probably going to be Bud Cauley, and because I don't think the number is going to be short of 30, and I think it could be in that potentially 35 to 40 range. In which case, in this field, I'd be happy to take him. I could be wrong about the number. We'll have to wait until tonight to find out, but that's probably going to be my first click. Jason, final thought.
Yeah, a couple more names I'll throw at you. Justin Lauer, I've been waiting to see do something well. He's not playing his best golf right now. Nico Echeverria can really putt.
Yeah.
And JT Poston can putt. And we're talking about taking really good putters at the John Deere. Both of those guys will interest me in a few different markets.
If JT Poston was ever going to win, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but like we get to some big tournaments with some like big names and people are picking JT Poston, and I'm like, that's just not going to happen. But I think in this field, it could. I'll throw out another name. Keith Mitchell's in this field. No.
We're done.
I mean, it's so funny. I just mentioned JT Poston can't win, and then I'm like, but Keith Mitchell.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. Look, I've spent 6 years driving the Keith Mitchell bandwagon and like just throwing money at Keith Mitchell, saying he's a top 20 player in the world. Look at the stats. He's so good. I'm done. I quit Keith Mitchell. You know what? If he wants to go win 4 times in the next 12 months, he's going to do it without any of my money on him. That's okay.
Does Sam Stevens interest you guys at all?
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. I have to deep dive that a little bit more from a course fit standpoint, but I do think He's one of the more talented guys in this field. Jackson Suber, if you want to kind of go long, he's playing well this week. Typically a good ball striker. I say typically like he has some long pedigree on the PGA Tour, but we know him as a good ball striker. John Pock is another guy that'll have super deep odds that I won't take as an outright, but I'd consider as like a DFS play.
Lucas Glover is going to probably be a little too short for me, but he tends to be a course horse. Like he plays where he plays well, he always plays well. Where he plays badly, he plays badly. He's very predictive. Henrik Norlander's ball strike has been so good all year that at some point you expect him to pop. Yeah. And then look, if we're looking for a bigger number, and I don't know exactly what the number is going to be. Sometimes the odds makers know that we're we got this nice shiny toy that we're dangling in front of your nose, and everyone wants to jump at it. But Jackson Koiven is very, very talented. He's still an amateur. He's going to go back to Auburn next year. We saw it with Nick Dunlap last year in a better field than this one is coming up this week. I wouldn't be shocked if he's up there.
I really like that. Yeah, big fan of that. He's super talented, can roll the rock too. Yeah.
I think Eric Cole's been a little bit better off the tee. I got to double check that. He would be a name that I think in a birdie fest could really get going. Wonder what the number is going to be on him. I got to deep dive him a little bit more, but Eric Cole would be one more name for me to throw. And I got to say Patrick McDonald's boy Grayson Sigg is in this field. Sure. He will inevitably be like 4 under through 7 holes, and then he'll completely go away. So that's the Grayson Sigg experience.
Don't talk about Zach Johnson like that.
Zach's impressing me. I'm not going to lie to you. He's like at the top. It's ridiculous. All right. That's going to wrap up our very quick hitter coverage of the John Deere Classic. More to come, of course. You know our schedule at this point on the early wedge. Monday at 7 o'clock DFS show. Tuesday at 7 o'clock Best Bets show. Wednesday at 4 o'clock, the live chat. And then, of course, we bring you this show, which is a live chat of round 4, live betting of round 4, and then the quick hitter preview of the upcoming tournament. Thanks for joining us for this portion of the show, and thanks for being subscribed to the early wedge. Ladies and gentlemen, we got to circle back. I don't know what's going on in the course, Jason, with respect to the Rocket Classic. Obviously, we're still far away from anybody close to the lead teeing off, although it does look like the 13 unders are about to get underway here. Any final thoughts on this tournament? Any matchups you really like? Anything kind of ring in your ear on the front end of the show that you said to yourself, well, yeah, I've got some money on Knapp and Grazeman, but maybe I want to dabble here as well?
Yeah, this feels like a good wait and see day for me. I just watching the DP World Tour, the Italian Open, sitting there watching it, and they get to the back nine. Excuse us.
Go ahead. We're used to Chief. That doesn't faze us.
Yeah. I started talking Italian Open, and everyone gets excited around here. So, in any case, lost my train of thought. They're sitting there talking we're on the back nine. It's like Martin Kuvra, like he's hitting every shot he needs to. This thing's pretty much in the bag. He's in control. All of a sudden, he gets flipped by Adrian Sadier. I feel like that's a precursor of things to come later in the day, that just when you think one guy's going to be in control, this thing can flip, and it can flip in a hurry at this golf tournament in Detroit. So don't be afraid to play a guy at a decent number, like through 10, 11, 12 holes when he might be 3 down and it looks like all hope is lost, but it might not be.
Yeah, Josh, I want to get your thoughts here too. As I consider just some matchups before we get out of here, I think I might end up taking – I don't know that, like, I usually put a full unit on all my round matchups. I'm a little tentative on Matt Fitzpatrick over Davis Thompson just because I didn't necessarily love Fitzpatrick coming into this tournament. But I can't ignore the tee to green that we've seen from him and the fact that I do think he's going to rebound with the putter. So just from a purely matchup standpoint, I think the one I'm looking at right now is Fitz minus 110 over Davis Thompson. If you have a matchup you like, let us know. But Josh, anything, not in matchup wise necessarily, but anything when you look at this board that we have up here, what do you like?
I like waiting 3 holes to see how tightly Aldrich Potgieter is gripping the golf club. And if he's shaky, then we can start to do some things. But it's one of those days where if he has a nice round, there are 4 guys who have a chance to win, and if he doesn't have a good round, there's 15 guys that have a chance to win. So if it looks like he might let a big group of guys back in it, then I think there are some fun names here, but if he birdies 2 of the first 4, we might just be looking at Potgieter walk into his first PGA Tour victory.
Jason, when we did the show, I guess it was last week, at the very end of the show, because was it the Travelers? When Keegan won. That was last week, right? Sorry, I'm just getting everything mixed up.
Yep.
We walked into that show because it was Keegan, it was Henley, and it was, who was the third that was on top? Oh, it was, of course, Tommy Fleetwood.
Yeah.
How forgettable is he already? That's crazy that I forgot of all names, Tommy Fleetwood. But when we went into that show, I came in thinking, I kind of like Russell Henley, and I can't remember the number, but it was like plus 350 or something. And so was Keegan Bradley, and Tommy was a pretty big favorite. I left the show. It was at this point of the show that we started talking, and I was like, you know what? It's Keegan. We talked about that who's got that dog in him kind of thing. And we weren't trying to be super weird about that phrase, but like it really came down to like who's going to be able to close. And it came down to Keegan, and I ended up putting a live play on Keegan and making some like legitimate money where I didn't have any of my pre-flop outrights in play. With that said, as we've had this discussion, I'm starting to think it's Jake Knapp and especially at a plus 750 number. I'm starting to think that the guy who's won before, that is in excellent form, like the last couple of rounds, is crushing it with the ball striking, getting hot with the putter, plus 750 is starting to speak to me, knowing that he is only 2 shots back.
I think if we're going with the guy that's got the dog in him strategy here, I actually think it's Max Gracerman over Jake Knapp. I've said on Early Wedge, I've said on CBS HQ a few times during this week that I think there's a good comparison to be made between the Dookie and the Tar Heel, between Gracerman and Ben Griffin. I think that there's a lot of just analytical and statistical similarities between them. I think their makeup is pretty similar as well. They're guys that weren't like really heavily recruited, guys that we didn't know a whole lot about, that kind of worked their way up through the ranks to get to the PGA Tour. And once they get there, kind of play with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. In fact, I think Gracerman's got more of a chip on his shoulder even than Griffin does. And I just like his mental attitude towards things. I like the fact that he's going to go out there and try to take this thing as opposed to letting it be handed to him. I know a lot of guys will say, I just want to take it one shot at a time and just, aim for the middle of the greens and see what happens. He's going to play aggressive golf. And yeah, you can get burned by that, but you can also win golf tournaments doing that as well.
Yeah, Josh, your thoughts here. I mean, I know you just kind of gave your thoughts on Aldrich, but in terms of if Aldrich doesn't win, who in the chase pack do you like?
The guy that I don't think blinks first is Knapp. I think Gracerman, if he's kind of lingering, like 1 or 2 back, mostly. I'm not after the Wyndham last year. I don't have a ton of faith in Max Gracerman being in control of a golf tournament coming down the stretch. But if he's lingering, if he's playing some good golf, kind of keeping pace with a decent pocket around, I think that's interesting. But the guy, I think I agree. I think Knapp is really interesting from he's got victories under his belt and just doesn't seem all that bothered by things when the pressure gets up.
Again, as a guy with tickets on both Gracerman and Knapp pre-tournament, I actually bought into a little more Gracerman on Friday, I think it was. I would love to see a couple of early bogeys from Chris Kirk. Chris Kirk worries me a little bit. I'd love to see him just kind of get behind the 8 ball a little bit, fall down that board, and not have to worry about him.
Totally agree with that. If Chris Kirk starts finding the putter, it could be like the pressure is going to be on even more so because I know Chris Kirk isn't a huge name, but I think it's a lot different for Aldrich and guys like Max and Jake if Chris Kirk is like right behind you. Here's what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to play the 2 matchups. I'm going to take Fitzpatrick over Davis Thompson at -110, and I think I'm going to dive into Jake Knapp -120 over Mark Hubbard. Might be -115 actually over Mark Hubbard. And I think I'm going to do it like I have Tristan Lawrence already at 50-1 because I put that in Friday night when I was doing that live Twitter thing. I think I'm going to just put a sprinkle on Jake Knapp and just see where it goes. Maybe add another live play like you guys are talking about after a few rounds. But I think Jake Knapp is the guy I'm settling on here.
My only Sadier parlay, and I like putting in these, I call them scratch off tickets. Sia, as you know, I like putting in these little just a couple bucks here and there. We're just dropping some stuff around. I went with last night, Shakara and a few. He absolutely blew it. The guy's short game is terrible. We're done with Shakara. I went with Angel Ayora and a few, but where I have Sadia after that win, I've got him with Nap and Answer in a parlay. Answer on Live today. I've got some Stewart Sink. By the way, if it's still out there for the Dow Championship, we're going deep.
Yes.
Ryo Takeda and Miyu Yamashita, a pair of rookies on the LPGA, are 3 back, and I got them at 40-1 in my book. That's a massive number for 2 really talented players. Who knows? It's a 2-player team event, and they're going out there today, like just, freewheeling. That said, they're really good. I thought that was a huge number, and there's a bunch of players up there that are packed pretty tight, but a lot of inexperience, a lot of players who haven't won, a lot of players that you wouldn't expect to be up there. 40-1, 3 back.
I mean, see, this is why those of you that are in the chat, thank you for being here. By the way, Ryan Kofter says, so fun on a Sunday before watching the final round. He says, love the show. So I think this is a really well-placed time for the show, but I also think the discussion really lends itself to eventually kind of settling in on a couple of plays, whether it's outright or matchups or round scores like Mike likes to give out. I think this show is just really well positioned. So Ryan, thanks for being in here. Tell your friends to get in here too. Always hit the like button though, most importantly, and make sure you're subscribed to this SportsLine channel. I had a final thought on Jason, what you just said, but I kind of forgot about it. So I guess we can probably close the show. Josh, you have a last word here?
Was it on my LPGA play? Was it?
That's what it was. Oh, thank you. So in the Best Bets show on Tuesday, where of course we have Jason available to us to talk about whatever tournament is happening, we also tend to talk about like Live if they've got a tournament. But what people don't understand, Jason, is how much you're invested in the other tours as well, particularly the LPGA from a just betting standpoint. So when you're in that chat, do not be shy about asking Jason about those tours as well, because these quote scratch off tickets, you put $2 down on like a 3 outright parlay that pays something like crazy, like $3,000. It's listen, this is supposed to be fun too. Like throwing $2 away here, $2 away there, not a big deal. We're trying to have fun when we do this as well. Jason, go ahead.
I will tell the people out there, if you haven't done this before, first of all, this is not big money. This is like, a couple bucks, like Sia said right there. I will admit to doing too many of these on Wednesday night. Like my Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday night routine is kind of like sit back and sit there and go, like, if you're trying to parlay like 3 winners together, and I'll round robin them too. So in case I get 2 of the 3 or 3 of the 4, at least you're getting something back. And look, there's big numbers. Your eyes get all big when you're like, all right, I'm going to take 4 75-1s on 4 different tours to win their tournaments. And all of a sudden it's like $1.37 to win $1 million. Is like, okay, cool. Let's do it. I will say these things are a whole lot, quote unquote, easier when you play them like Friday night going into Saturday, Saturday night going into Sunday. At least we've got a chance to like, okay, like, so I beefed up a couple of these parlays that I did with Takeda and Yamashita last night at 40-1. At least the number looks good that you can win again. And if you lose them, you're like, whatever, like you back it up. I like personally back it up with a few like sort of conservative top 20 type plays. Like I've got Grayserman for top 20s to back up the outright plays. So it's like, cool, I'm getting the money. I should get the money back. I'm not getting it yet. I should get the money back in the top 20s. I've put into all these stupid little scratch off tickets and basically break even on all those things if I don't hit.
And eventually one of those scratch offs might actually hit. And then it's just like, all right, I'm paying for a lot of things with that. But again, it's fun to have those. It's fun to be able to discuss those on a Sunday and say to yourself, well, I actually have a chance at this one, especially when there's only, $1, $2, $3 leveraged. All right. That was a long show, but it was a great show. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Really, really appreciate all the support. And thank you to Josh for being in front of the camera, but doing all of the stuff behind the camera as well. A big thank you to Patrick, who did lose his connection, but he'll be back with us before you know it. And of course, Mike McClure on the front end of this show as well. And of course, a big thank you to Jason at Jason Sobel Golf. Check out all of his content pretty much everywhere. It's been a great show. Let's have a great final round 4, and we'll see you next time for the John Deere. Thanks, everybody. This is the Early Wedge.